Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. 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 Promoter 101.
Adam Kornfeld. I'm at Artist Group International, AGI in New York, and I'm on Promoter 101.
So this is the Promoter 101 podcast, and it's edition 193. Joining us right now, a special guest co-host, pop punk manager to the stars and surfer extraordinaire, Rick DeVoe. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, thrilled to be here, Steiny. This week we'll feature one of the biggest concert promoters of all time, as our next masterclass sessions continue with UK concert promoter Harvey Goldsmith.
If that wasn't enough, we've got a war story from Degy Bookings, Josh Sherman. This is a brand new one. Josh always brings the story. But first, Rick, your company was kind of known as Big Dummy, and when you managed Blink and Unwritten Law, what's the story behind that?
Before I did any band managing, I was a promoter for like 5 years, and I was known for promoting a lot of punk rock shows that were targeted towards surfers and skaters. And I hooked up with a guy named Taylor Steele, who was well known in the 90s for making surf movies. He discovered Kelly Slater and all those big guys from the Momentum generation, which they just had a HBO documentary on. And I met Taylor, and I asked him if I could premiere his movies around the country and use the bands that he was using in the soundtrack. So I got hold of Epitaph, and I got hold of, some of the bands that were in it. And I started promoting these surf movie premieres, and it attracted a young man named Tom DeLong. He came into my office when I ended up graduating from being an indie promoter to working with Bill Silva. And he came into the office and he's like, "Hey, your shows are sick. Can you promote us or manage us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "What's your band name?" He's all, "We're called Blink," And I was like, "Sick." And he's all, "We're 3-piece." And I'm like, "Rad." And he's like, "Will you help us?" And I'm like, "Sure." Just like sight unseen. I had heard of him, but I was stoked. I'm like, "What do you do for a living?" He's all, I drive trucks with concrete. And I was like, "Rad, okay." And he looked cool. And I'm like, "Yeah, I managed this other band, Unwritten Law." And I kind of just picked them up really from the surf industry and promoting my shows, It was a lot of fun.
Cool. But you didn't answer the question. Where did the name Big Dummy come from?
Okay. Big Dummy was a group of us that when we were in high school, we were all kind of these big, tall surfers, and we hung out at Malibu, Third Point, and we just came in. There's like 10 of us, and everyone called us the Dummies, and I just was one of the big ones because I was taller. And then I put my very first show together on at the Whiskey in Hollywood called the Big Dummy Jam. And it was basically, I invited all my friends from Malibu to come to a show. And I think we had the Offspring play or something like that. From that point forward, I started doing all these big dummy jams, and that's where it started. And then I got acquired by Bill Silva because I was getting all the cool punk bands, No Doubt, and all the ska bands too.
I love it, man. That's so cool. We go back to those days. So I remember all that. What about now? What are you working on now?
Yeah, man. Well, right now I'm managing a band called the Aqua Dolls from the Orange County. They're a 3-piece, all-female band. When I went, I kind of had to stalk them because, things are different now. When I got into management, it was pre-internet, and I would just have to go to shows and stuff. But now you find bands and you lurk on Instagram, and these girls thought I was a full-blown stalker. And I'm like, no, for real. I know how to manage bands. And they would ignore me. And I was getting so frustrated, and I had to lurk and find other bands that knew them. And I finally got them to vouch for me, and they finally let me in. But we're going on tour. We got a really good booking team at William Morris. So we're really psyched. Stoked.
Awesome. Well, check out the Aqua Dolls on tour and try and hang out with Big Dummy if you get a chance, because that's coming your way.
Yeah.
Episode 193 starts right now.
This is Meg White from ICM, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Have you missed any of the past episodes? Well, by now you probably have this figured out. We've got them all saved for you online. Just go to promoter101.net and search for whatever episode you want to hear. They're all there saved for you on our big digital cloud library of Promoter 101 classics. This week, we really think you should check out episode 111. Well, because it's fun to say. 111.
Yeah, Paradigm's Dan Weiner sharing his 50-year journey in the music biz. SMG Tulsa's Joe Giordano Jr. talks about BOK and how it has changed the way the world sees Tulsa.
Plus, we got some free legal advice from AEG's Jason Bernstein. That's the in-house counsel over there. Free legal advice. You can always use some more of that.
And hey, so if you got a free minute, please drop us a review or subscribe to the Promoter 101 podcast and tell a few friends about us.
It wouldn't bum us out at all. Big shout out to all the Scoremore guys. Kelly Logan, our Emporium Denver office, says those guys are the coolest guys to hang out with when he's in Austin, down there for Austin Semi Limits this weekend. Shout out to all those guys. Thanks for listening to Promoter 101.
Hey, it's Henry Glasscock, a.k.a. Crystal Pistol from WME, here live at Promoter 101.
News of the week.
It's time for News of the Week. I'm your beloved editor, Connor, and I'm going to break it down for you real quick. First up, China banned South Park. In response to an episode about Hollywood trying to please the Chinese government, all clips and episodes were removed from all streaming services in China. And if you search social media giant Weibo, you cannot find a single comment about the show. They killed Kenny, those bastards. Next, we had Light CEO Ant Taylor announcing that the ticketing exchange platform has secured $15 million in Series A financing to drive development of the platform and scale operations. We also have the Music Industry Therapist Collective, which was launched earlier this year by a collective of industry psychotherapists, revealing that its 300-page touring and mental health manual is now fully funded, having smashed through its goal of £21,774. That's over $27,000 courtesy of a donation from Live Nation's president and CEO, Michael Rapino, who said, quote, "It's critical that we provide support to ensure that everyone can maintain sound mind and body while on the road. Live Nation is proud to join the Music Industry Therapist Collective in providing new resources for mental health and wellness for behind-the-scenes heroes who make it all happen," end quote. And that's pretty freaking awesome. And finally, Ozzy Osbourne postponed his European tour dates once again as he recovers from surgery, assuring fans that he's, quote, "not dying," but says his recovery from a fall earlier this year and subsequent surgery is forcing him to push back his European dates once again. That'll do it for News of the Week.
This is Gary Tovar, founder of Golden Voice on Promoter 101.
It is conference season, and among the best of them, and one of my favorite, IEBA is coming up in Nashville. And with a little preview, we've invited Pam Matthews to walk us through the highlights of what's coming up. Pam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Can't be more excited about coming back to Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, the last week of October. What do you have in store for us, Pam?
Well, I just want to say thanks again for coming back. You guys were here in 17 with Bob Rue, and it was great. A conference highlight for sure. This year I'm excited about Deborah Rathwell. I'm currently obsessed with Deborah Rathwell and Susan Rosenbluth. I mean, when you really just stop and take a look at what they're doing today, it is incredibly impressive.
They are two certain bosses that are running that world over AEG and the industry at that for sure.
Oh, yeah. You know, I'm also excited about Agents Power Panel, which we do every single year. This year we're doing it a little bit differently. We have Sarah Bullwinkle and Matthew Morgan, who obviously have Billie Eilish and Lizzo, respectively. My gosh. Then we're going to talk to Bruno Del Granado about the Latin market, and Joe and Phil from UTA about all that non-traditional stuff that they do. Our friend Nick Nucifaro, who's just so smart in general and then so good in his specialty of comedy. So I'm excited about that one.
Those are some heavyweights you're talking about right there, and all having amazing years.
Oh, yeah. I'm just getting started. We're going to talk to Colin Lewis and Kevin Shivers about hip-hop, and forgot to mention Alex Hodges. So it's kind of a big year.
It seems like it is the conference everyone's coming to. I mean, there really is no mega fall conference in New York anymore. So this is it for the East. So all the venue managers that reside on that part of the country that are, driving or coming, this is the go-to for them. And certainly people are flying in from all over the country, let alone over the world. So you've created the Mecca in the fall on the East Coast. This is the big one.
Well, thank you. It is big. It's grown a lot in the last 7 years, and I'm not sure if it's just a confluence or maybe we're a little later in the year, but I'm tracking like 300, almost 300 attendees ahead of last year, and last year broke a record, so it's a little crazy.
So new hotel, JW Merritt, you switched over to last year, and by the way, it's become my go-to hotel when I stay in Nashville. It is right in the middle of the Gulch. Everything is in walking distance. The whole hotel is gorgeous, and you don't really ever need to leave the hotel. Everything you need is right there. You can walk to William Morris in 30 seconds. It's amazing.
You absolutely can, but you will need to leave if you want to see the 55 acts that will stage at the Cannery at night. But I have shuttles. If you've been to Nashville lately, you know that we shuttle people all over the downtown area in anything from gators to open air buses to tractors pulling hay bales. I mean, we've got it all, but we will go over to the Cannery and see some music.
Well, I don't think you need the shuttles. It's nice that you have them for convenience, but that's a nice, brisk couple-minute walk. You can grab someone to talk to and walk over there and get a meeting knocked out on your way over. That's an easy walk for sure.
100% it is, and it's a pretty walk. It's around the Talking Stick roundabout. You don't ever have to cross the street, so thank you for the plug. It is a nice, easy walk.
It's a fun walk on the way back, too. You can walk off some of that buzz that you get while you listen to some good music over there. So tell me about some of the sessions you're excited about.
Well, again, I'm excited about Agents Power Panel, which I am every year. We're doing a new panel, 3 agents in conversation with 3 buyers. I mentioned Susan and Alex. We'll have Darren Lashinsky with us as well, Gil Holcomb, Aaron Tannenbaum. I'm excited to talk about national tours. It is certainly one of the hot topics. And Kate McMahon will be joining us, Kelly Capp, Megan Wilson with Red Light. So that'll be fun as well. I can't believe I've waited 5 full minutes to mention Joan Jett. I don't know how that happened. So I have Joan Jett and Kenny Laguna, and then I have Joan Jett also and Kevin Lyman. So it's not actually a panel that we're doing at the conference every month in IEBA's newsletter. We have an IEBA interview section where we go talk to folks, and so Kevin and Joan will do a portion of that for us. Larry Vallon, too. I mean, it just goes on and on. Here's my ultimate goal, Dan. My goal is to be Promoter 101 Badass of the Week, October 28th.
It seems like that should happen.
Don't you think I qualify? Like, the floor is littered with all the names I have just dropped in the last 3 minutes.
It's a recommendation not lost on me at all. I'm very excited to come back to the home of Meet and 3 for our final Promoter 101 podcast. I can't thank you enough for helping set up Deborah Rathwell. I don't think there's more of a deserving boss to be the last and final interview, let alone a keynote at your amazing conference. And I couldn't think of a better place for us to end it all right there at IEBA.
You are just too kind. Thank you. We're excited to have you guys back.
Get your tickets now. It's the last week of October, October 26 to 29, IEBA.org. Check it out right now. Don't get left in the cold because it sells out every year and you're going to be calling begging Pam to let you register late after it's already sold out. Save the begging, save the pleading. Just go right now and get your badge. Don't get left out because this is going to be the biggest conference of the fall.
It certainly is. Thanks for the plug there, Dan.
Doesn't get any better than having Pam Matthews right here on Promoter 101 to preview IEBA for us. Thank you, Pam.
We are thrilled to announce that Promoter 101 has teamed up with the Recording Academy's Music Cares Foundation to do a little good. And you, our beloved listeners, can help. By going to Promoter101.net and clicking the merch tab at the top of the page, you can pick up a stylish, limited edition Promoter 101 Call Ya Mother t-shirt or hoodie in a huge variety of styles and colors. 100% of proceeds goes directly to Music Cares and their mission to provide a safety net of critical assistance for music people in their time of need. Shipping and handling is absolutely free, and for the first $10,000 we raise, our good friends at Prism are matching donations dollar for dollar. Go to Promoter101.net right now, click on the merch tab, pick out one of our awesome shirts, and be the heart and soul of the music community by donating to Music Cares. And don't forget to call your mother.
Up next, we have a war story with Degy Bookings' Josh Sherman.
Josh Sherman of Deki Talent. Now, Degy is a brand new gig for you, actually.
Yeah, totally. You know, I was working with Booksmart, which was my own company, and I was picking up some Broadway entertainment, some off-Broadway entertainment, a lot of theatrical, or as I like to call it, theatrical adjacent type of talent that I was representing. And a good buddy of mine, Jeff Hyman, has been working there for a number of years. And he's like, you know, we're thinking about getting into the PAC market. And so started chatting, and now I'm working with Jeff Hyman and Ari Nisman, and it's been a great fit so far. It's been a couple of months, and it's been awesome.
We're going to get to your war story story in a second, but what I find amazing about you is we have so many overlapping social circles.
Yeah.
Because, there's not enough Jews in the business, first of all. But you're married into the business.
Correct.
On top of being an agent.
Correct.
On top of like working that Broadway world.
Yep.
So it's like you got all these different fields. So like our friend circle is just like massively overlapped.
Yeah, the Venn diagram of it probably looks like one of those like mosaics or like something that if you stare at it long enough, like a 3D boat comes out or something like that.
I like it. And that 3D boat would turn into Seth Molaski, I think, somehow.
I would like to see Seth Molaski as a 3D boat very badly. Seth, please make that happen for Halloween.
I think at a Fish concert it happened once. I'm pretty sure.
I'm glad you remember it.
Anyway, let's dive into some of your classic industry war stories. What do you got for us?
Well, I think my favorite classic industry war story comes from a long time ago when we were booking when I was at an agency, not to be named specifically. And we'd been working on, and the PAC business, a lot of times, especially with the theater stuff, and I don't know how deep everyone goes into this, but there's a much longer gestation period for putting things on, and it's got to go in the brochure, and you've got certain things that kind of have to happen in order for it to work. So you're working, at least 6, 8, 12 months out, sometimes 18 months out before anything gets finished and gets completely booked. So we had been working on a non-equity, which means non-union tour of Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk. We had been booking it, and we were kind of finished with the job pretty much and had it kind of locked in at about, 10 weeks, a 10-week long tour. We've been done for months. And then we walk in after like Thanksgiving break and we get this staff meeting and the heads are like, guys, something went wrong and we don't have the rights to Noise Funk non-equity anymore. And you have to call all of these buyers who had it in their brochures.
Oh, so the ketchup was out of the bottle already.
Oh, tickets were sold, whole 9 yards. So here's the thing. So but the tour was supposed to start in January. So we're finding out the last Monday in November that the tour's not going to happen. And, I honestly don't know the reasons why it wasn't, but they had a replacement ready to go. And the replacement was Savion Glover as a solo act.
Well, at least the same genre as.
Ish, yeah. But you think about it, like the non-equity tour didn't have Savion Glover in it. It had other amazing dancers that were going to do it.
But no name.
But right, it wasn't a name tour. So you actually had something to kind of put in there to be like, okay, well, do you want to try this? Actually, I shouldn't say it was solo. It was him with a 15-piece classical chamber group, right? So he was tapping live with these amazing strings on stage.
It's a high-end show.
Absolutely. Totally high-end stuff. And he's a name, right? So we had to, when we're calling these presenters.
As a ticket buyer, I would be happy with that trade-out.
Well, that's the thing. And so, but you don't know. You really don't know, especially with the last minute, especially something on brochure with tickets already sold, or whether a replacement would work. And so my story is that one of my great buyers at the time was the Count Basie in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Legendary room.
Absolutely. It's a terrific room. And at the time, Numa Saselin, who's now down at Florida Theater in Jacksonville, he was the guy who I was calling up and be like, hey, man, we don't have Noise Funk, but we've got classical Savion. We've got Savion Glover, and it's going to be a dope show. And he went back to his marketing team. They said, you know what? Let's swap it. Let's do it. And Savion's from Jersey. I'm from Jersey. So and Numa's from Jersey. So we're all Jerseying it out. And it winds up being a sellout show. So I go down to the show. My parents live down there. My family lives down there. My cousin's a tap dancer. Everybody shows up at this show to see Savion Glover. It's really cool, right? But the most impressive thing is that with this whole switch that turned into a sellout show, Bruce Springsteen walked up 15 minutes before the show and got a pair of tickets and watched it. And that's when Bruce Springsteen met Savion Glover backstage in front of all of my friends and family. So that's my industry dope ass story, from a last minute cancellation to a sellout show when Bruce Springsteen got to meet Savion Glover in front of my mother. That was pretty great.
So did you get to meet Springsteen?
I didn't meet Springsteen. I saw him. And Springsteen sightings in Jersey are it used to be the bald eagle anywhere in America, but now the bald eagles are back. But, you see Bruce and you're just, you'll never forget it. You'll never forget it. It was awesome.
I like that you took us down this path where it was just Sabian. And I didn't see Bruce Springsteen coming in, but it was from the side, it was boom, Springsteen story.
Listen, if you're from New Jersey, if you don't have a Springsteen story, you better have a Bon Jovi story, or you really don't have any stories, or maybe an Eli Manning story. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know that an Eli Manning story is as cool as a Springsteen story.
There's nothing as cool as a Springsteen story.
No, that's pretty good. Hanging on Bruce Springsteen stories, that's a pretty good place to hang your hat.
Steiny, it's so good to be here. This was so much fun. I'm having a blast.
Josh is so magical on the mic. We had him here just a couple of weeks ago, and here's just another great industry tale. What an icon that Josh Sherman is turning out to be. Coming on big at the end of Promoter 101, Josh Sherman.
This is John Schultz. I'm Windish.
Charlie from Crescent Ballroom.
Craig Newman.
Dave Brooks.
Dave Ratner.
John Holiday.
Doug Bicknell.
LX.
Imong Shaw.
Kelly Lefko.
Gerald B. Henley.
Harlan Fry here.
Jack Ross.
Jason Miller.
Jeffrey Fox. Joe Escalante.
Blair LeBlanc.
Martin Atkins.
Neil Dixon.
Nick Farkas.
Paula Palazzo.
And I'm on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 35.
John Meglin.
Some of the focus was on arenas. And we said, wait a minute, this guy's rolling up all these amphitheaters. He thinks that's a business. Da-da-da-da. Who's going to protect the arenas? So there were little buzzwords or little sayings that were floating around during that time period, like the building manager would wake up on Sunday morning and see an ad for a show out at the amphitheater, and he didn't even know the show was coming to town. You know, never even got a shot at it. So it was things like that. So we formed the Arena Network to kind of represent, in fact, very funny, we named it Driving Back from Las Vegas. We couldn't afford to fly then, so we drove. No, we did. We'd go to the Long Beach airport because we could get $20 tickets on, I forget whatever the name of the airline was. You know, it cost me more in gas to drive to Long Beach, you know, and $20 to fly to Vegas because we didn't have any money. So
this is when you left FSFX.
Yeah.
About to run a national syndicate to promote shows. You guys are pinching pennies. This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first 2 years, man. We each have our salaries. Paul and I each made $200 a week. That was it. That was just that we had insurance. I mean, that was it. Everything else was like into the company.
So you were really committed to like make this work. You were willing to work for no salary, basically, to like keep this off the ground and do the shows the way you wanted to do it.
We knew we had to strike at it, and we knew that you really had to move on this quickly. Or, you know, he could have run the tables. He very well could have run the tables, Sillerman. And then they tried to again when Brian had it as Clear Channel. And you could say they're trying to run it again now, at least North America, Europe, man. They're everywhere.
Their global play is a serious thing. Michael's definitely stepped it up.
You know, and listen, I give him so much credit, man. He's just very, very funny story. Just one more tangent. I remember my first day at CPI up in Toronto was July 1 of 1990. So I get up there like, you know, the week before I drove up from LA. And there was a guy that was going to be my marketing guy named Jeff Chabon. And
Jeff Chabon, yeah.
Yeah, you know Jeff. He was down at San
Phantasma,
Antonio. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's where, yeah. So
I think he's with JV now back down there again.
I think he is back there. So Chabon's going to be my marketing guy, and he comes over to this apartment that they're putting me in, like I'm in like the Toronto version of an Oakwood apartment, you know, furnished apartment, you know, with 3 plates and 2 forks and a glass, right? And he comes over with his buddy, this young kid named Mike Rapino, and they're going to take me out on this boat on Lake Ontario where this guy who is now Joey Scolari, is the DJ. And I'm like going, great. And look, Michael, you know, I saw him while I was working for Labatt's, you know, then he went and did Core Audience, you know, him and Steve Herman and Gord Berg, one of my guys. And, you know, and they got acquired and all that, but man, he's done an amazing job. He really has. Look, I grew up and worked so much with so many of those guys. I can't say anything bad about any of them. They just wear a different jersey.
They're super likable guys, and they're doing good business.
It's all about different styles. If you want to go to this, Paul and I said, wait a minute. These guys are trying to take all the power to, quote, say the promoter and the venue, et cetera, et cetera. And they're going to, quote, teach these artists a lesson. Paul and I said, great. There's got to be business for us.
Probably a couple of people that don't want to be taught a lesson.
No, I mean, actually, the very first thing we actually got was we got Andrea Bocelli, a bunch of his shows on the West Coast. It was his first run. And we just hustled it.
Sting was early too, right?
No, it was Don Henley. See, Irving gave us, and we partnered it with Bassett, gave us some Millennium shows for the Eagles here in L.A., and it was a no guarantee deal. We just really all worked it together and hard. We put the show on sale before Staples even had seats in it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it wasn't the opening show because Springsteen was, but it was the Millennium show. And then Irving also, we did Don Henley. We'd have to partner with different people out there. And we just started hustling. And we got Mariah Carey. And Paul and I found a guy up, Darren Libanati in Las Vegas, turned us on to this guy named Alan James. He passed away a number of years ago, but was a small boxing promoter and did some small independent films. He had a company that built railroad car containers and barges that went on the Columbia River.
It's a whole bunch of different hats.
But a great guy. So this is when we needed to really start putting up some guarantees for things. So we made a deal with this guy to back us just on a tour-by-tour basis. Get a tour, we'd come in and we'd present our economics and that, and the money would take half and the work would take the other half. And we'd each pay the cost of our own business and that. But that's when we did Mariah Carey, and that's when we did the Dixie Chicks. And we started making some headway. We're like a couple little guys. We're actually starting to make a little bit of money. We're
$300 a week?
No, we actually gave it to all the employees because we couldn't pay them much more either. So we had to give it to them first or they were going to leave.
Hey there, this is Andy Gould, CEO at Spectacle Entertainment, Promoter 101.
Tweets of the week.
Okay, I hope you're ready because it's time for Tweets of the Week. Tweet number 1. That moment when you're working with someone else's support staff and realize even they hate them.
This is just uncomfortable all the way around.
Here's one. The moment when you get an email from someone that did not mean to copy you with notes on how they plan on playing you.
This is always great when the other team shows you their playbook. Nice free look.
And then that awkward moment when a friend asks you to invest in something you have no interest in at all.
Invest? What? I could barely afford my lunch. Get out of here with that.
That will just about do it for Tweets of the Week. You can follow on Twitter at The Jew.
I'm The Jew.
This is Andy Levitt with Live Nation Comedy. You're listening to Promoter 101.
Established in 2016, Promoter 101 and its illustrious founding fathers, Sir Daniel Steinberg and the one and only W. Lucas Pierce, have fermented like the finest of wines. And after almost 3 years of bringing you only the most exquisite, educational, and thought-provoking interviews, it is with great pleasure that we bestow unto you the Promoter 101 Masterclass Sessions.
Masterclass.
In our feature interview, the Great Britain sessions continue with UK promoter Harvey Goldsmith.
We are in London, and I'm hanging out with the Bill Graham of the UK, Harvey Goldsmith. Thank you for taking time for us today.
My dear friend Bill Graham, rest his soul.
You have a legendary career, and just talking about the hits, Live Aid, Andrea Bocelli, Hans Zimmer, David Gilmour, so many more things. When people think of London in the UK, you are the promoter that comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm not just London. I'm worldwide. I work all over the world. You know, I'm currently doing tours in Asia, which are about to happen with Hans Zimmer. I have a show with Pete Townsend and his wife, Rachel Fuller, coming up in Los Angeles. I work all over the UK and I work all over Europe. So I've never, for way back from the 70s onwards, have always worked around the world.
Promoting, when you started, was a regional business, if not just a venue business for most promoters. What made you think outside the normal looking glass of promoting outside of one market?
They used to have a saying in England, which was join the Navy and see the world. So I thought I could be a promoter and see the world, which I've certainly done on a number of occasions. So very early on in my career, the opportunity came up, actually, I think, to take Black Sabbath to Australia and then Deep Purple to the Far East. So I grabbed the opportunity. When I first started, there were no rules. There weren't any promoters, and it was just how far could you push the envelope, really. In England, the premier music circuit, which was these ranked cinemas that all had big capacity, 2,000 to 3,000 people venues, in order to play those, what was called the premier circuit, it was a kind of variety show. So you had to do 2 shows a night, 6 o'clock and 9:30. You had to have a compere. You had to have a novelty act in the show, and you had to have a number of artists performing, and you had to have an interval. Those are the rules.
There's a format.
Yeah. That worked fine until I started working with Deep Purple. And Deep Purple wanted to play, at the time, our kind of premier London venue, which was Hammersmith Apollo, which is still there, still exists, still a great venue. And they said, we want to do the whole show. It took me about 6 months to persuade the owners of the venue to actually allow an artist to do a whole show, because they couldn't get their head around it at all.
So what was a full show at that point? How long were they trying to play?
2 hours.
So they were doing a legitimate full show.
Yeah, well, we consider today's normal.
Would that be 2 sets for them, or would that be just a straight through?
No, they just play one show, 2 hours. Sometimes 2.5 hours.
Like the first jam band ever was Deep Purple.
But once we broke that barrier down, then everybody followed. And then we started doing shows at Wembley Arena, which at the time was the Empire Pool Wembley. It was a swimming pool. And they used to put duck boards over the pool, and we'd build a stage at one end. The only thing you couldn't do was drop your keys, because if you dropped your keys and they fell into the pool, you'd had it. So I kind of laid down my own rules right at the beginning that with the artist that I promoted, I felt that I had to like the music, number one. Number two, I had to like the artist and get on with them. And number three, I had to deal with their management. That was what I wanted to do. And I felt if I couldn't actually have a one-to-one with the artists and understand what they really wanted to do, I didn't feel I could do my job properly. So what I would do is the live side, whilst the manager concentrated in the prime on the recorded side.
Record business.
Yeah. And so I kind of coordinated. I sat down with the record companies and the managers and the artists to decide what they would do. Then I'd sit down with the manager and figure out what production they wanted to do. Right at the beginning, I'm going back to days of Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and even the Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, the Who, and so on. It was a different relationship. And so, that was how I worked.
Okay, you're talking about the biggest bands in the world, and most of them still are, but particularly at the time that you're talking about. Were some of the agents concerned about how close you were with the act, and did that affect you getting other acts because you were working directly with the acts? Did agents fear that?
It did eventually, yeah. I mean, at first, the agents weren't that powerful. And I worked with the agents. I worked with way back when I first met Bruce Springsteen, and he was the opening act in a club in New York. I was told about this phenomenon. I went to see, they said, forget about the headliners, just go and see the opening act. So I went to see the opening act. I went backstage. I walked in. I said, you got to come to England. And he kind of looked at me. He said, hey, man, this is the first time I've ever played at New York, let alone England. And it took me 2 years to get Bruce to come to England and then to Europe. But then I worked with Bob Ring, who was at William Morris at the time. So, I didn't have a problem working with the agents, but what happened was I also developed a relationship with the record labels, all the major record labels, and they would feed me the acts. They would say, go and see Billy Joel, go and see Bruce Springsteen, go and see, well, actually, not Bruce Springsteen. I told them they didn't even know they had him on their label, Columbia, when I first met Bruce Springsteen, and things like that. So that's how my work developed. And then if acts wanted to go to Australia, I'd take them to Australia. I always, all my life, decided, from the very beginning, felt I didn't have the nerve to actually go in and physically promote in somebody else's territory, but I would find partners in every territory.
So you co-promote?
Yeah.
So you had boots on the ground?
Always. But I saw my role more as a coordination. So again, quite early on, we formed a syndicate together, and we did the Beach Boys around the world, all outside America. I mean, it was a kind of tacit agreement that I didn't go to America and America didn't come to England. That was a kind of tacit agreement. We set up a group and we did all the Wings tours. We did Joe Cocker. We did the Beach Boys, going way back, all over the world.
You came to America quite a bit at the Polestar conferences, what have you. Almost nobody, maybe you and Michael Chugg, probably the only international promoters that would be in those rooms back then.
Yeah.
And that's an expensive flight, especially going back. What's the benefit of actually going in and hobnobbing with the Americans?
I don't know about hobnobbing. When I finished at university, before I finished, I went on an exchange course to America. And I got fed up with the course that I was doing, which is pharmacology. I went to New York. I had an aunt and uncle who lived in New York. I stayed with them. It was a very hot summer. 1967, I decided I wanted to see America. So I bought a $99 99-day for international students Greyhound bus ticket, and I went from one side of America to the other.
Just explored?
Yeah, I just wanted to see America. And I ended up in San Francisco. And as the Greyhound bus was driving over Golden Gate Bridge, I could see this gathering, which turned out to be in Golden Gate Park. And I went downtown and checked into, as it happens, I think it was the Y, and then wormed my way back to Golden Gate Park and wormed my way backstage and met the Grateful Dead and kind of befriended them for 30 odd years. And I then saw all the music scene in San Francisco. I met Bill Graham, and I met another promoter who people don't really talk about that much, Chet Helms, who subsequently owned an office in London. He had Family Dog. Bill had the Fillmore. And, I did a deal with both of them. So I realized, there's a big music scene in America. So I thought, well, okay, I'm a promoter. There's lots of English acts. I'm fully occupied with the acts I'm working with. But I also went to meet with all the record labels. And all of them had international departments. And all of them were desperately trying to break their acts outside America. And I said, here I am. So I kind of had the pick of whatever I wanted from way back. And I just picked it up and ran with it.
Bill would seem to be the guy that wouldn't have enjoyed the idea of you working with both him and Chet simultaneously. How did that work?
He didn't know.
Oh, okay. Well, because it seems like he might have lost it a little bit on something like that.
But with all due respect, and Bill and I later on in years laughed about it, what really turned me on was the fact that both Family Dog and Fillmore produced these amazing posters for shows for artists that I'd never heard of. But the posters were so compelling that you just wanted to see what the hell was going on. So my first arrangement with Bill and Chet was to represent their posters in Europe, which I then set up a poster company.
So you were selling the art of the posters.
So I was selling the art, not the music. The music came after that. And what happened was with the poster company, which is how I really got into the business professionally, I started with another guy who had actually originated the business, but then he wanted, and I met him by, again, coincidence. And we started a company called Big O Posters. Big O Posters was the poster company in England. We would distribute posters all over Europe too. And we subsidized two magazines. One was Oz Magazine and one was International Times. And through those two magazines, they kept driving me back to doing concerts, which I did at university, because they were always short of money. They were always being busted. They were always having problems. And so they could say, oh, you do concerts. Can you do a concert to raise some money? So through them, I met Jimi Hendrix, and I did a show in London with Jimi Hendrix and the Animals, and I did a load of other dates with Jimi Hendrix. And then we did a show in Alexandra Palace called the 14-Hour Technicolor Dream, which had every act you'd ever heard of on the planet playing. And that was to fundraise for International Times. And so I was constantly being dragged back into doing music. And then the next thing that happened to me, I met Manfred Mann, who was huge here. He was managed by an Australian manager called David Joseph, who was never in England. And it so happened that my brother-in-law was his lawyer. And they wanted someone to look after their London office. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about management, so maybe I should go and learn that. So I went to work for Manfred, and I started putting his tours together. And through Manfred, we also set up a group called the New Seekers, which is based on the Seekers, an Australian band. And that's how my connection to Australia started. It went from there. And then after a period of time, I was running the office. I was also starting to make movies of artists because the manager was a very astute guy. He was a TV producer, and he produced really long-running, very, very successful show in Australia called Hey Hey It's Saturday, which featured every Australian band. So I met all the Australian acts through that. I worked with Glenn Wheatley, who managed John Farnham. And so my global outreach got even bigger. One day David arrived in London and sat me down and said, we're going to start filming some artists. And I said, okay. And he said, go and meet with Bell and Howell. Bell and Howell make projectors, but they've also got these 16mm Super 8, Super something or the other cameras. Go buy the camera, practice with it, and I want you to go and produce a load of films. First film you're going to do Tony Bennett, then we're going to do Herman's Hermits, then we're going to do Manfred. I'm going, I don't know one end of a camera from another. He said, you'll pick it up. And he left.
Learn by doing.
So I started making these movies, and I said, what are they for? He said, well, there's a process coming out called videos. And he said, we're going to make a stock of films which will be available when the video comes out. And I'm going, I don't know what he's talking about. But anyway, that's what I'm getting paid to do. So that's what I did. It was just walking into things. It was luck, timing, coincidence, or whatever, and picking it up. And so I had a really wide introduction into the music business, and I still wasn't sure. I mean, I was training to be a pharmacist. I was interested in cosmetics and perfumery.
It's kind of far away from the Rolling Stones and the Who.
Yeah. And then I like music because my family were kind of very open to listening to music. We listened to a lot of jazz at home and so on and so forth. So music was in my heart, but I didn't understand it was a business like everybody did at the time.
A lot of the acts that you worked with were playing theaters. The big acts were playing theaters in the early days. And then it moved into arenas and festivals and stadiums. When you were doing stadiums, there wasn't a lot of that going on originally. So did you have to learn by doing it? Assembling some of those first stages, those monster stages in stadiums, seemed like dicey business without a real footprint of how to do that stuff. You guys kind of invented that business.
Well, they were playing theatres and concert halls because that's all there was. But at the same time, there were open air shows starting to happen in fields. So Isle of Wight, Woodstock, there was a big festival here called Wheelie. I mean, there were some really early open air festivals. I did 3 shows in a park called Primrose Hill. I actually did the only ever midnight show that's ever taken place in London, and it was headlined by Fleetwood Mac. They were all done on a shoestring, but, you know, we had 75,000 people pitched up, and it was so crazy. They'd never had a midnight show before or since, because after that there was such a brouhaha that the government passed an act called the Night Assemblies Bill, and that was the end of it. Stop us doing any more.
You changed the
And
law.
then there were the Hyde Park shows, you know, with the Rolling Stones and so on, which I was one of the stage managers on the Rolling Stones show in Hyde Park. There was the NJF, which is now, you know, the Reading Festival, the early parts of Reading, which was started by a guy called Harold Pendleton. And that's been going for donkey's years. So alongside playing the regular concert hall theatre type circuit, there were, in the summer, open air shows. There were no stadiums. The first arena was Wembley, and that was because we decided to see what we could do in there, and the owners of the Empire Pool agreed to put a temporary floor over the swimming pool. They didn't take the swimming pool out. They just put a floor over, you know, duckboards over the floor. That went from there, and then they also own Wembley Stadium, and so we decided to try our luck and do a show at Wembley Stadium. All it was more problems. As simple as that.
Bigger problems.
Bigger problems. And a better team. And just learning as we went.
So it was all trial and error.
Yeah.
I just have this vision of like watching the first time you put the dartboards over the pool and just hoping it didn't collapse with all the weight of the people on them.
They worked all that out, but the problem was there were gaps between the dartballs. I said, if you dropped your keys, you were dead. You couldn't get home.
A lot of that happened?
Yeah, and there used to be steam coming up from the pool. So it had its own effect. And then we used to use a cinema in Glasgow, which was a fantastic venue, called Green's Playhouse, which then became the Apollo. And when I first went up there, the dressing room was the coal hole. And they used to be under the stage where they stored the coal to stoke the boilers for the heating. On Thursday, they clear out all the coal. They give it a whitewash. Saturday night, we did the concert. Sunday, they put the coal back.
Very creative.
So just again with America, I was the only promoter. They'd never seen an English promoter before. The only other person that ever did anything in America was Harold Davison. And he worked with people like Sinatra and Judy Garland and that kind of thing. Other than him, Nobody else from England ever went. They didn't go to America. They didn't know what to do when they got there.
Yeah, at the conferences, it would be you and Michael Chugg would be the big international
and then
faces.
Chuggy came from Australia.
I thought for the longest time there was only one promoter in the UK and there was only one promoter in Australia, and it was the two of you because you guys were the only ones that came.
No, there's always been lots of promoters since we started, but I was the only one that kind of went to America.
Did that wind up bringing in extra business because you would meet the American managers and you would be the face that they knew?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you weren't just a phone number or a name. They knew your face. You were there.
Exactly.
So that changed the game for you as far as the American acts?
Totally. So I met tons of artists. I met lots of managers. I had a great relationship with Warner's. I had a great relationship with Atlantic, and, Armit became my mentor. Armit Ertegun became my mentor in America. I met Frank Barcelona because Premier Talent, which pretty well built the business in America, but I was working with all the English bands that he signed in America, in England. And so we met up, we just hit it off, we became great friends. So the two introductions that I really had to the American market was Frank and Armit. You couldn't get better, believe me. And they opened all the doors for me. And then there was a girl called Bunny Frieders who ran the international for Columbia Records. And that was Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen and Miles Davis and Lord, and onwards and onwards. And the same, with Mo Austin and so on at Warner's, and Armit and Jerry Wexler and Nesui, Armit's brother, who owned Atlantic Records. They were all my friends.
Lots of ties to different relationships, but it sounded like networking had a lot to do with you setting up your company.
Yeah, a lot of it. A lot of networking. And then I had to pick.
And so you travel to America. Where I'm guessing it wasn't just America. You probably did a lot more traveling than that.
I started working in Europe in the 70s, early 70s, and I was doing quite a lot of shows in Paris. That I was doing myself. That's how I learned in the very early 70s. If I'm going to work in another territory, I had to work with somebody locally. Because the first time I started doing shows in Paris, the first couple of shows I did Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour, which was Leon Russell and Joe Cocker.
Yeah.
And then I took Miles Davis to Paris as well as England. And then I did West Bruce and Lang, Leslie West and Jack Bruce and Corky Lang, all of which did the business. But the French promoters tried to kill me. I mean, they did everything. They did everything, including all the posters we put up. They put cancelled on them. They told everybody the acts weren't coming and it was a fraud. I mean, they did everything possible to stop me working in there. And that's when I realized not a good idea to go up against the local promoters.
Wow.
So I started working with them. It went from there, and then it was opening up territories. And it was really through Elton John that we went to Russia, because I was touring Elton John, and Elton, we played some shows at Wembley Arena, and he had Stevie Wonder as a guest, and he walked off stage. He was in a terrible state. And he said, I'm never going to work again. I've had it. I don't want to work. I hate it. I'm not doing it. And he disappeared for like 18 months. And then one day he called me up and said, let's go and have lunch. And he said, I've just finished recording a new album and I've got to do a live performance of it in Paris for the French record company, for the European record companies. So I said, yeah. And he said, I don't want to tour. I said, okay. He said, but what do I do? So I said, well, you got to put a band together. You got to decide what you're going to do. You're going to have to do a couple of weeks rehearsal. Who's paying for it? And they said, well, they think I'm going to have to pay for it. So I said, okay. So just tell me the date, where you're going to do it. It was a theatre called the Châtelet, and I'll sort it out for you. And he said, well, I've got to have to rehearse. And then he said, but I'm not touring. I said, okay, you keep telling me that. Anyway, by the end of the lunch, his not touring turned out to be a show with Ray Cooper, single man. He said, I can't go back to all those same venues again. So I said, well, where do you want to go? He said, I want to go to Russia. I said, okay. And then he said, I want to go to Egypt. I said, okay. I want to go to Israel. I said, okay. So he came out of it, from him not touring and having to do one show for the record company, to I think the tour lasted 18 months, actually. And we opened in Russia.
And you played all those other markets
we went
too,
to Russia.
Israel? And
we went to Israel and I went to Egypt. He loved Israel. Because they were new territories. And I worked with John Reed, and John Reed would, phone me up after and said, what happened? I said, he's going to work live, but he doesn't want to play all the normal places. He said, great. Do you think we can make it work? And that's how it went.
Well, it sounds like as an independent entrepreneur that you found all these avenues that continued to make money. But I assume there was some failure along the way, as most entrepreneurs have.
There was always failures. Not everything ever worked. Most of it did. It was just a great time. There were so many great bands. Every week, there was a new band coming out. Mark Bolan, T-Rex came out. Unbelievable artists. There was Jimi Hendrix. There was, Manfred Mann was still touring. Then there was Yes. Then there was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Then Frank Zappa came over and we toured that. Then there was, it was like picking off the low-hanging fruit from a peach tree. There were so many artists around. The Pink Floyd had started. The Rolling Stones were out there. The Beatles I missed. But then when the Beatles split up, Paul formed Wings, and we did all the Wings tours. And then the Beach Boys came over, and on it went.
It's just an amazing cycle of talent you're talking about. I mean, some of the biggest acts in the world.
As I said, working with Deep Purple, working with Black Sabbath, working with Hawkwind and all those bands, The Move, The Action, and all those bands around, they were coming out of the woodwork. And then working with The Who and working with the Rolling Stones, pretty much all away from America. I didn't really do anything in America till much later because, as I said, it was a kind of tacit understanding. You just kept away from each other.
Well, it's two different systems, America and Canada and the rest of the world. So AG and Live Nation are doing global deals with most of the acts you're talking about if they're still working at all.
Yeah.
How has that changed the business as far as you can say?
Dramatically. The creative and interesting side of our business died 7, 8, 10 years ago. Just died. The cult of celebrity came about after Live Aid when media realised they could sell newspapers and TV shows on the back of music. So it all became about celebrity. When the precursor of Live Nation started, when SFX started, and Silliman and Ron Delster and Mitch Schneider came together to roll up promoters in America, there was a huge war. I had all the independent promoters calling me up saying, "You're not going to join, are you?" And I'm going, "No." I remember Frank Barcelona literally begging me, saying, "You're never going to join them, are you? You're not going to get involved with this guy. He's, he'd already bought Delcy." But I remember having a three-way conversation with Don Law in Boston and Frank Barcelona and myself. And they're all saying, Don Law says, "If you don't join them, I won't join them." The same with Philadelphia and
Larry Maggot,
with Larry and so on, and Arnie and Jerry in Chicago and all that business. I'm the only idiot that didn't join. Except Arnie and Jerry.
Yeah, they stayed true to that.
Everybody else joined.
Don did pretty good for himself. Yeah, Larry got a pretty good check too. I think Larry said he was the last one in.
Pretty much, yeah. So it was a crazy time. Once that started and that roll-up started, both in America and then in England, the business changed. And when AEG came about, which I helped them right at the beginning because I talked Phil Anschutz into buying the Dome, which is now the O2, which is the number one arena in the world. He came to see me because Irving Azoff sent him to see me. He was going to buy Wembley Stadium, the whole Wembley complex. Mm-hmm. And I told him he couldn't buy it. And he kind of kept looking at me saying, "But I am buying it. I'm here ready to go. And I'm here with my lawyer and I've got a check in my pocket. And we're closing the deal in the morning." And I kept saying, "Well, I'm really sorry, but I don't think you are." And he said, "Well, will you help me if I do?" I said, "I'd love to help you, but you're not going to be able to do the deal." Anyway, he phoned me the next day and he said, "What the hell did you know that I didn't?" And I said, "Well, I'm working with a government agency trying to solve a problem at Wembley, which I can't talk to you about because whatever the bank's telling you or the lawyers are telling you is a crock of shit. They can't sell it to you." But I couldn't tell you that. But now you know the deal's not happening, I will tell you. So I said, I want to take you somewhere else. I took him down to the Dome, which was the Dome built for the Millennium. I showed him around and he was not very pleased at the time. And I said to him, look, this is a real opportunity. He said, but this is a disaster, isn't it? I said, it's only a perception. I said, this is a massive space. If you look at this as a whacking great umbrella and build an arena inside it, you can build a whole town around it. And if you build a facility that both artists and the public like, and they already had a station, beautiful station, literally outside the arena.
When you say station, do you mean the tube?
Yeah.
So there's already mass transportation.
Yeah,
there.
because they built it for the Millennium Exhibition. Right. I said, it doesn't matter where the place is, they'll go. He went back to America really fuming because he'd screwed over on his Wembley deal, and then phoned me up 5-6 weeks later and said, okay, what do we do? I took him in to see the government, blah, 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 blah. He ended up doing a deal for the Dome. He then went overboard and created a fantastic space. And from the day that arena opened to today, it is the #1 building in the world.
It seems like there's a footprint that they've picked up on at AEG where they don't just build a venue now, they build...
That's because I said you can build a town around it because the arena only sits in the middle of the Dome.
Right.
So there's a whole town. And I said to him, don't make it like a shopping mall with escalators going up and down. Make it like a real town where there's streets and squares and they're not interlinked. They stand alone. I said, because if the roof ever comes off, you've got a town ready built. So they thought about it, and that's how they designed it, and that's how they built. Then when they built the Staples, they built the downtown area.
I hope you're getting a royalty for that stuff.
They took care of me very nicely, and I was thrilled that they actually gave the UK this amazing space.
It's an amazing transformation in the market, and it certainly does work.
So back to the war. The war is ridiculous. It is really ridiculous.
Talking about AEG
and
and Live
like
Nation.
A three-way war because, although that seems to have calmed down now when Irving and the Garden took over the Forum and all that business, they started overpaying for the acts in a silly way as a fight. You know, we're not going to let them win. They're not going to let us win and all that business. So the business just became about money. And unfortunately, today, it's all about money. I'd hate to be an independent promoter today. It's really difficult because the deal today is how little do you want to make? If you want to make nothing, you got a chance.
It's about the honor of doing the show.
Yeah. And so when I was up against artists who agents were telling me they'd had offers for 103% of the gross, I'm going, how the hell do you do that? The only way you're doing that is if you're stealing. And I also became, and still am, a fierce opponent to screwing people on tickets, which I absolutely hate with a passion.
Explain what you mean by screwing people on tickets. Are you talking about scalping? Are you talking about adding tickets as a rebate? What does that mean?
What started off as scalping, then became the rebate business, then became the secondary market, and now is a combination of all of that, is a horrible, horrible way of treating our fans, the people that keep us all alive, like shit. We are finally starting to make headway in England, but in America, I don't get it at all. I don't understand why the public stand for it, why they're being every day of the week ripped off. I just don't understand it. And here we're getting on top of it. And in fact, this week, finally, after attacking Google for the last year, they don't take the ads for the crooks, then people don't know about where to go to buy tickets.
Right.
Finally took Viagogo out of the game completely, globally.
Game changer.
But that was because we put so much pressure on Google. They can care less. It's no different from you want to go to a hotel. You never get to the hotel. You always end up going to bookings.com, Expedia, TripAdvisor, Trivago, this, that, and the other. By the time you get to page 5 on Google, you might find the hotel who will give you a much better deal than all these fucking people. Same with airlines. You go to an airline, you want to go on a plane. The chief executive of British Airways, a friend of mine, he came over. We had breakfast a couple of months ago. We were talking about it. And I said to him, and I told him about our war with ticketing, which he's been aware of. And I said, even on British Airways, it's the fifth one down that's British Airways. The first four are trying to con you into believing it's British Airways. That's Google. It's the same as fucking eBay. eBay owns StubHub. When I did the Led Zeppelin concert,
You're talking about the reunion, right?
Yeah, I did their tours as well. But when I did the reunion concert, it was the most extraordinary concert I've ever done in terms of demand for tickets and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, StubHub arrives selling tickets, which I knew the name of every single one of the 17,000 people who were at that show. And we went out of our way to stop anybody who wasn't legitimate for buying a ticket. And we do that where we can. Same with David Gilmour.
So you were scrubbing the list.
We're trying to sell to our fans. The fans are the ones that keep us alive, and our business is the only business in the world that goes out of our way to screw our fans up. We let them be overcharged. We don't have a fair distribution system. We don't take care of them. We rip them off with fan clubs and this, that, and the other. Premium tickets, hospitality, deals for this, stand on your head. We're in the ticketing business. We're here to get people to come and follow and act and see the music. That's not what the business is today. It's horrible.
Let's go back to the SFX for a second. Everybody said they weren't going to sell, and you didn't. I assume at some point they came calling with an offer.
We talked about it, and Phil Anschutz talked to me about going inside of AEG. I kind of, for good or for bad or for being stupid, like my independence. So I decided to stay independent.
Any regrets to that?
Only the bank balance.
I feel like you've probably done pretty well for yourself, though.
I've done okay. I'm not complaining, but I have to be much more careful because today, if you lose money on a show, on a tour, you lose a lot of money. So you have to be careful about that and how that works.
Clearly have a good working relationship with AEG and a relationship with Phil Anschutz.
Yeah, and with Live Nation.
Do you work with both companies? Do you co-produce?
I do. I'm working with Live Nation on a show in America now. I've worked with them before. I work with AEG. I kind of try and work with everybody, but my life is different today. I got to the point where I guess I was promoting something like 750 shows a year at the time, which is today's nothing, of course. Not even in the ball game today, but then it was a lot.
Well, for a single business unit for any of those major companies, that would be a massive volume of shows for a year.
Massive volume.
I mean, as a global company, sure, they're doing more, but particular business units, that'd be a lot of shows for any unit.
Yeah. I mean, I used to come in the office and find out who I was. If I would have Queen and Elton John and Paul McCartney and the Who all out at the same time. As I come in the office and switch hats, trying to figure out where. And if I didn't go to one show, if I didn't go out on enough dates with Queen, I'd get Elton John screaming at me, and then vice versa. And that's how it was. It was funny.
Great that the artist wanted you there.
Yeah. They always wanted the promoter. Well, I don't know, because my relationship, it is strange. Some promoters, and there's some very well-known promoters, they never met half the acts they promote. They don't know who they are. They're just kind of, they don't even see them. They don't talk to them. They don't have any relationship with them, which I find rather strange.
Obviously, you're still in the game, but your volume has come way down, right?
Yes, way down.
How many shows a year?
About 200.
Okay, so it's still an amazing amount of volume.
It's enough, yeah. I've got Hans Zimmer going out to the Far East. I'm working with Andrea Bocelli here. I have this big Jules Holland tour that I do every year. And I got Jimmy Buffett coming in. And
how big is he here, Buffett?
He hasn't been here for, I can't remember how many years. And I got a call. Jimmy wants to come to England. I've always got on well with him. So that's my relationship. Will you take care of Jimmy? What should we do? So as it happens, and they gave me a short window when he wants to come to London. I couldn't get the venues I wanted. We ended up playing the Palladium. We're doing a show in Dublin. I think it took 7 minutes to sell out. Maybe it was 6.
Wow.
And half the people in my office didn't know who Jimmy Buffett was, nor did the venue. And I kept saying, no, it's going to be, I thought, it's going to sell out, but maybe take a couple of days of it. I think it was about 7 minutes.
That's impressive.
And I think Dublin was about 6 minutes.
So Jimmy's one of those acts that the amphitheater business in America was built on, the foundation
Correct.
of the business. Festivals were much bigger here early on.
Yes.
But the amphitheater system never happened here.
Correct.
Had that happened, and I realize real estate's a thing over here and it's hard, but had that developed here, would have that affected the festival game, and would that change the business?
Yeah, the amphitheater business in America is an enigma. It's what SFX was built on originally.
Right.
Because
and pays for them.
Silliman wouldn't buy a promoter unless he had bricks and mortar or a deal for an amphitheater. He wouldn't buy them other than that. So that was the basis of the business.
Right. And Graham, cellar door, pace.
Yeah.
Obviously, that stuff is the foundation of building the business.
So I think now with Live Nation, in some instances, they rue the day that they ended up being lumbered with a load of amphitheaters. They kind of work, they kind of don't in America. They went through phases where it was really difficult, and they made a huge mistake when they were part of Clear Channel when they decided to give away the lawn tickets. And at that point,
they taught the fans to
They
wait for them.
completely, it took them a long time to claw back and get back to normal venues. But there are some amphitheaters in Europe. There's some classic, like Red Rocks type amphitheaters in Germany. There's a few in Europe, but not many, because it's just a different concept and we don't have the space. And nor did anybody want to put the money into the infrastructure.
Right, but it seems like at some point that had to be a question of, is that something you guys are going to build out here?
Well, I've spent about 10 years trying to persuade the government to build a proper amphitheatre in Hyde Park instead of all the disruption they cause and the weeks and weeks of reseeding the grass and all that to do 6 concerts. They're better off building an amphitheatre, tendering that out like the Hollywood Bowl, and having someone like AEG or Live Nation, whoever it is, to run that. It wouldn't disrupt the whole park. But the government, they said to me, we've got to pass an act of parliament to do that. I said, so what? What's the problem? Just do it. But they can't get their act together to do that. And a lot of cities in Europe don't. Paris had the Champ de Mars, but now the Champ de Mars, which is underneath the Eiffel Tower, is being transformed into a park or something else. So we went for initially fields with festivals, which is Glastonbury and that kind of thing, and Wilderness and all those, Love Box and all that kind of stuff. And then I didn't like festivals, so I started doing stadiums way back because I felt people would pay to sit and watch a show in a little bit of comfort where the toilets are there, there's walls,
they've got the infrastructure,
sun cover, and the infrastructure's there. And so I started working in stadia all over the country back in the 70s. We opened all that up, but then other people were doing festivals. Well, okay, that's fine.
Your stadium business turned into amazing events, and Live Aid came to be both of them, and you were in the middle of that. How did you wind up in those events? Because worldwide, huge events.
Oh, we did loads of them. I mean, I started off, the first big event we did was Who Put the Boot In, which was 5-6 stadiums around the country. That was in the 70s. We did Charlton. We had 60,000 people in a stadium that currently I think is licensed for about 40.
Who Put the Boot In?
Yeah. I'd always been involved from right at the beginning. I felt again that I was living very nicely out of our business. I was taking a lot out and it was easy to put something back. So I worked with Paul McCartney and we did the concerts at Campechier. I worked with Pavarotti and we did Pavarotti in the Park. And then we did, Pavarotti Plus for the Red Cross. I started the Prince's Trust concerts, which we did, 11 of them. And I put an all-star band together with everybody from Robert Plant to Phil Collins and Elton John and so on and so forth. Put all those shows together. So they became events. Live Aid came together because for the first time in our history, we were watching on the main television news pictures of people starving down the road. So the debate in Europe at the time was we had fruit mountains, butter mountains, i.e. excess of crops. And what the hell did we do with all this stuff? And we're looking at the news and seeing people down the road who were starving. And then Bob Geldof picked the challenge up and he and Midge wrote the song, Do They Know It's Christmas? And they put it out and created Band-Aid. And that was really successful. And then Bob went down to Africa to see for himself what was going on and came back and said, we've only just touched the iceberg. We're right at the top of at the heap here. We have no idea what's going on down there. We've got to do something bigger. And so Live Aid was born.
So America and the UK simultaneously simulcast concert with some of the biggest acts in the world.
All the biggest acts in the world.
2 different locations simultaneously, right?
So what happened was this. Bob and I became yin and yang. He would scream at me, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do the other. And I go, screw you. Okay, we'll do it. And this kind of thing happened. And then the dates that Bob originally came up with for Live Aid were actually for Bruce Springsteen. And he kept saying, no, Bruce will play the show and he'll do it. Well, he didn't play the show and he didn't want to play the show. But I still had Bruce Springsteen playing at Wembley Stadium. And he kept saying, you got to move the date. I said, they won't move the date. You know, it's not going to work. So eventually we moved the date. And then we went to the BBC and we persuaded the BBC to broadcast it. From that point onwards, when the BBC actually, again, for the first time in history, agreed to put 16 hours of television live for music, never happened before. At the same time, Bob said, we've got to do a show in America because we're going to have a simultaneous show. So I got that the wrong way around. So we decided to go to the BBC. They agreed to broadcast it. And then Bob said, well, we're not going to get enough understanding of what's going on in Africa if we don't do America. So we've got to play New York. So I went to Shea Stadium. I couldn't get it. I went to Giant Stadium. I couldn't get it. I went to RFK in Washington. I couldn't get it. And I spoke to Bill Graham, and Bill Graham said, yeah, I love the idea because I'd worked with him on Amnesty shows. Mm-hmm. I created the Amnesty shows and then
Amnesty International.
Yeah. And then passed them over to Bill, which was with Peter Gabriel. And I got Bill involved in this and Bill kept saying, we've got to play in Stanford. I said, no, we can't play the West Coast because we have a deal with the BBC. The BBC said they will broadcast America if we can get it, but we can't have that 8-hour gap. We can deal with a 5-hour gap. So it's got to be on the East Coast. So Bill kept saying, no, I don't want to do it unless we can play the West Coast. And that's when I phoned Larry Magid up. Larry then went to see the mayor of Philadelphia, and the mayor of Philadelphia bought into the idea and said you could have the stadium. I went back to Bob, and Bob said, we're not playing Philadelphia. What the hell, we might as well play Milwaukee or somewhere in the middle of nowhere. What's the point? I said, listen, Bob, Philadelphia is the home of the Liberty Bell. You couldn't find a better place in the whole of America that represents what you're trying to do. And then he got it. That's how he ended up in Philadelphia. And Larry came to the table. Bill was bitching and moaning all the time. And in the end, I had to split my team in half from London and send half of them over to there to help put that show together and half from here.
But when you're dealing with Larry Magid in Philadelphia, you got a pretty good partner as far as that market. So that
he
had
was
to be great.
But Bill was the guy that we went to. So Bill was all over it. And he was giving Larry a bit of a hard time on it. And I'm working with Larry because I knew he could deliver, which he did, of course. So it got a little bit fraught. So in the end, I sent Pete Smith from my office over there to stay there and just keep the peace between all of them. But they did a great job.
When you're doing events like that and you're trying to change the consciousness of world issues, it's not about money anymore. It's about the way people see the world.
I mean, none of those events are about money for me.
Right. It was about raising money for the charity.
Yeah, about raising money for the... I mean, with Live Aid, it was a simple issue. We in Europe had an over-subscribed amount of food. And in Africa, they were starving. Why the hell can't we redress the balance? We could do that. So when we started off, our target was £1 million. And the night before the show, on the Friday night, about 2:00 in the morning, because we had a little bit of aggravation, that I came up with this idea of a circular stage, so we could have one act performing, one act loading on and one unloading all at the same time, so we could keep the thing going. It stopped working Friday night about 9:00. And I had to go down and keep the crew happy because they were all going potty. They'd had enough. They were exhausted or whatever. And then I got a phone call from Hall & Oates' manager. And he said, because in most countries, they ran the full show, 16 hours. MTV took it in America, but ABC or NBC or CBS wouldn't. And we ended up with a 2-hour broadcast at ABC. And Hall & Oates' manager said, if we don't put Hall & Oates in, so we had to choose who was going on the show. We didn't put Hall & Oates on the main ABC feed. They were going to pull Hall & Oates and they were going to pull Mick Jagger and so on and so forth. And we just, I got to the point, I said, do whatever you like. So Bob and I were on the phone till 2:30 in the morning on the Friday night, Saturday morning of the show. And then we kind of finally sorted it all out. And we got the stage working, we got everything working out. And we looked at it, we kind of, on the phone, looked at each other, if you like. And we both said, you know what, if this really works, we could raise £5 million. That was our thought process. Little did we know we'd raise 140 million.
It's amazing.
It set the bar. It changed everything. The component that really brought the idea together was the BBC.
It wasn't really the gate that raised that much money, right? It was the call-in donations. That's why because you knew what the gates were going to be. I mean, the show's obviously sold out. But so it was just the overwhelming amount of money that came through the donation process,
which was
running.
Started off very slowly and then just poured in because we were live in 60 countries. It never happened before. No one had ever, and nor since, no one had ever broadcast 16 hours of rock music on television live. So it was an event, but it changed the whole idea of giving, and I enjoyed it. To me, it was just as easy to do an event like that for a cause as it was to do my own shows, and I got a kick out of it. I didn't earn a penny out of any of that. Like the Band-Aid still continues. We still give out £2 to £3 million a year. The same trustees are the same trustees, none of whom have ever earned a single penny out of it and have no interest in earning any money of it. And we've given away millions. But that started the pathway. And then after Freddie died, I did the Freddie Mercury tribute. I'd already done the Amnesty show. I did the Concerts of Campuchia with Paul McCartney. I did the Red Cross shows. I did Pavarotti Plus, which was for his charity. And then we did the Pavarotti concerts with all the pop acts, which went to build children's homes and ultimately to deal with the war in Yugoslavia and so on. And I've always done it. And I enjoy doing it. I get a kick out of it. I try and ensure that whatever the target is, we beat the target. We did Chime for Change with Beyonce and all those acts, which was all about empowering women. And we set out to make people aware around the world of women's rights and opportunities, more opportunities for women and so on. And we ended up funding 200 projects there and so on. It's easy. They're not difficult to do, but you've got to have your head round you. You've got to persuade people, all of whom earn a lot of money out of our business. And to their credit, all the suppliers come to the table each time. Because, when I'm doing I don't do them anymore, but when I would do a Rolling Stones tour or a Bruce Springsteen tour, and the sound companies and the light companies and the trucking companies all do very nicely out of it. So when I get on their case and bend their ears to do for nothing,
they throw you one.
They come to the table. And so everybody got something out of it somehow.
You've done so much in your career. What's left? What's the next thing?
Wipe out the secondary market off the planet. Fair distribution of tickets at the right price to fans. That's one goal.
That's a lofty goal. Is that possible?
Don't see why not. We started it here. Why shouldn't we carry on doing it? That's one thing. And secondly of all, I was the first person to take a pop act to Russia, which was Elton John. I was the first person to take a pop act to China, which was Wham in 1985. And now I'm starting to work with some Chinese acts to bring them over to Europe. And I have other interests. I'm working with an immersive theatre company. We have a staging process as well, which is a Dutch company called Imagination. I brought Cirque du Soleil over, which, again, everybody thought I was mad, and persuaded the Royal Albert Hall to put a circus into the Royal Albert Hall. They've been there for 28 years now, I think, or something like that. It's their most successful run of shows
in
the world on tour. I'm not involved with them anymore because they got bought out and they do it all themselves. But I love doing that kind of thing, launching and doing something different. because entertainment's entertainment. It's like around that mad time, Live Aid, for me, it was completely nuts. When Bob first talked to me about it, I couldn't even think about it. I was managing Roger Waters, who'd split from the Pink Floyd, and he just brought his first solo album out. And we were opening in Radio City. And I had to do that. I was taking Wham to China. And Bob was banging on my door saying, you got to do Live Aid. I said, I can't even, and I'm sorting out Bruce Springsteen playing at Wembley Stadium, all in the same 3 months. I said, I got to get all that sorted out. And it was literally the day after I got back from China, Bob was like waiting for me and said, you got to do this. So we put it together in very short notice.
Do you have any advice for the next generation of the industry coming up for career longevity?
We have a problem. We have a problem with artists at the moment. We are not developing the next generation of medium to long-term sustainable artists. With all the pop, the hip-hop, and all the top stuff that there is now, after a year, you can't remember the act you listened to on the radio 3 months ago, let alone a year. You don't remember the song. You don't know what it's all about. It's a sound. It's a noise. And those acts, most of them, their interest is they want to become brands. If I went to Bruce Springsteen saying I'm going to make a brand out of you, he'd hit me. Today, if you don't give those acts opportunities to become a brand, they don't want to know. And that's their interest. It's different. So the music is different. The listening style of the fans are different. But all I know is we've created an infrastructure of stadiums, of arenas, of venues, of festivals all over the world. And we've got to put someone in to fill them. And we don't have enough sustainable artists that are big enough to fill them that are new. And we're not developing that because all the money's going out the door. There's no room for a promoter to lose money for 2 or 3 tours on a new act. They don't do that anymore.
Well, the odds of them keeping the actor much harder and higher than they used to be.
Unfortunately, with the agency world as it is today and with a lot of managers, there is no loyalty. And that's no good. So bands, even with the Live Nation AEG war, acts flip from one to the next. So whoever's giving us the biggest check, they don't care. That's wrong. So we need to find a way to invest, nurture and develop sustainable artists who are going to be around for a while, because we need acts to fill our arenas. We need acts to fill stadiums. We need headliners for festivals. And we have them that are instant, and it is a different kind of world. But I believe at the end of the day, everything goes in cycles, and we're going to turn around in a year or so time, and we're going to have a problem.
Well, you've certainly told me what's worse about the business than used to be. Is there anything that's better about it that's progressively gotten better since you started?
For sure, music today is completely embedded in the world psyche, everywhere, globally. Music is still the global ambassador. It is listened to by more people than ever before in history. The live business, to all intents and purposes, is thriving. You talk to anybody at William Morris or CAA or even Live Nation, they'll tell you that the last 2-3 years have been the best ever since the history of music. But underneath that, I can see cracks happening. I can see holes and flaws happening. There's always change. I'm the biggest innovator of change. I've always been ahead of the game. When I started working in classical music, everybody thought I was nuts. And when I came across Pavarotti and started working him, who was the global rock star by a mile, people didn't really get it. When I started producing operas in arenas, everybody thought I was nuts. I like doing that, and that's why I value my independence. I can do what I like, because entertainment is entertainment. So there are other forms of entertainment which are growing, and I'm working in this immersive theatre space, which is growing and growing and growing, because young people don't want to sit passively in a standard Broadway type theatre, because they're being ripped off blind with ticket prices that are insane, particularly on Broadway. They are completely insane. Again, the theatre business has gone nuts. It started to join the greed club in the same way as we, with pop acts, we charge ticket prices for pop acts that make absolutely no sense. Where do those kids get the money from to support a pop act?
Their parents' credit cards.
Yeah, well, okay, if they've got it. The pluses are the business is bigger, it's better, it's probably more professional on one level, there's more opportunity, but it's still the club of clubs. It's still hard to break into the business. It's still hard to break. It's harder to break. And we're still ripping our fans off.
I want to thank you so much for taking time and talking to me today.
Pleasure.
Harvey is an iconic global figure. Thrilled that we were able to have him right here on Promoter 101 for our masterclass sessions.
Still to come on the Promoter 101 Masterclass sessions.
Greg Perloff, Randy Phillips,
Rick Mueller, Emma Banks.
Only on Promoter 101
Masterclass.
Hi, this is Phil Baldry from Live Nation in the UK, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Write to us at steiny@promoter101.net. Feel free to tell us what's on your mind.
So you might have heard we got some beautiful, beautiful swag. You got to check this stuff out. We got t-shirts, we got hoodies. All of the money goes to Music Cares. With your purchase, you'll get a tax-deductible receipt. It'll also include your shipping and handling. It's all included, plus the added bonus of a nice match by our friends at Prism. Tell us about that, Rick.
Yeah, Prism will also be matching the first $10,000 in donation to Music Cares. So get in on this now.
T-shirts are $20. Hoodies are $50. Go to promoter101.net/merch and pick out your beautiful T-shirts and hoodies right now. It's for Music Cares. We'll be back next Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Standard, 8 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard. Big thanks to Mr. Big Rick DeVoe for co-hosting this awesome episode today, man.
Thank you. So fun. Yeah, join us then when we feature the North American president of AEG Presents, Rick Mueller, talking shop with us from his early days at Golden Voice to his time in the Bay at BGP to his current position overseeing all of North America for AEG Presents.
We love Rick Mueller. Until then, we're wishing you sold-out shows for the week to come. Cheers!
Call your mother.
This is Fielding Logan at Q Prime, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba.